After buying a lost child a fried chicken meal, she was fired. 2 hours later, a man knocked on her. Lana sighed, her fingers sliding across the phone screen, rereading the message from her landlord. 3 more days. If you don't pay the rent, you'll have to move out. She glanced at the wall clock in her small apartment. 4 a.m. 2 more hours until her shift at the fast food joint. A weak cough echoed from the adjacent room. Her mother was awake again. Lana quickly stood up, poured a glass of warm water, and grabbed the medicine. Entering her mother's room, she gently lifted her head. "Mom, it's time for your medicine," Lana said softly. Mrs. Huang, Lana's mother, opened her eyes to look at her daughter. Her gaze was filled with love and regret. "My dear, I'm sorry for being such a burden." Lana shook her head, smiling reassuringly. "Don't say that, Mom, I can handle this." After her mother took the medicine and drifted back to sleep, Lana returned to the living room. She sat down on the couch, her eyes staring into space. Memories of the past came flooding back. 15 years ago, 10-year-old Lana clutched her mother's hand tightly in the cold Sagam night. The two had no home to return to, huddled together under a bridge, their few possessions stuffed into a worn-out backpack. Lana's father had abandoned them, leaving behind a mountain of debt and a broken family. "Mom, I'm cold," Lana whispered, her teeth chattering. Mrs. Huang pulled her daughter closer, wrapping her in a thin blanket. "I know, sweetheart, but we'll get through this. Remember what I always say?" Lana nodded, reciting the words that would become her lifelong mantra, "Do good, and good will come back to you." Those words echoed in Lana's mind as she grew up, facing one challenge after another. Despite their hardships, Mrs. Huang always found ways to help others, even when they had little themselves. Lana watched her mother share their meager food with homeless children, offer comfort to distressed strangers, and volunteer at local shelters whenever she could. As years passed, their situation gradually improved. Mrs. Huang found steady work as a seamstress, and Lana excelled in school, earning scholarships that eased their financial burden. Against all odds, Lana pursued her dream of becoming a software engineer, graduating with honors from a prestigious university. And for a brief moment it seemed like their struggles were behind them. Lana landed a high-paying job at a tech company, and they moved into a comfortable apartment. As Miss Huang could finally rest, no longer needing to work long hours to make ends meet. But fate had other plans. A sudden economic downturn led to massive layoffs at Lana's company. Despite her skills and dedication, she found herself jobless, deemed not presentable enough for client-facing roles. The irony wasn't lost on Lana. She had worked in the back office, rarely interacting with clients. "It's not fair," Lana had protested to her former boss. "My work speaks for itself. How does being presentable matter in coding?" Her questions fell on deaf ears, leaving her with a bitter taste of corporate politics and discrimination. As Lana's savings dwindled and her mother's health deteriorated, she found herself taking any job she could find. That's how she ended up at Crispy Crunch, a fast food chain known more for its greasy fries than its employee benefits. The transition from creating complex algorithms to flipping burgers was jarring. Each day, Lana donned the gaudy orange and yellow uniform, plastered on a smile, and tried to ignore the pitying looks from former colleagues who occasionally stopped by for a quick meal. "Welcome to Crispy Crunch. May I take your order?" Lana repeated the phrase countless times, her mind often wandering to the lines of code she used to write, the problems she used to solve. But even in this seemingly dead-end job, Lana found ways to apply her mother's teachings. She treated each customer with genuine kindness, remembering that everyone was fighting their own battles. She mentored younger co-workers, helping them with their studies during breaks, and she never forgot to slip an extra nugget or two into orders for families who seemed to be struggling. Now, as dawn broke and Lana prepared for another day at Crispy Crunch, she felt the weight of her current reality pressing down on her. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of 12-hour shifts, sleepless nights caring for her mother, and constant worry about making ends meet. She glanced at the clock again. 5:30 a.m., time to get ready for work. As she put on her uniform, Lana caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Dark circles underlined her eyes, a stark contrast to the cheerful yellow of her shirt. She took a deep breath, straightened her name tag, and whispered to herself, "Do good, and good will come back to you." Little did Lana know that today would be the day her mother's words would be put to the ultimate test, setting in motion a chain of events that would change not just her life, but the lives of many others. As she locked the apartment door behind her, stepping into the cool morning air, Lana had no idea that a small act of kindness was about to collide with corporate greed, family drama, societal prejudices, creating a perfect storm that would challenge everything she believed in. The sun was just peeking over the horizon as Lana made her way to the bus stop. The streets were quiet, save for the occasional early morning jogger or delivery truck. As she waited for the bus, Lana's mind drifted to her mother's medical bills, the looming rent deadline, and the daunting task of finding a job that matched her qualifications. The bus ride to Crispy Crunch was a blur of familiar sights and sounds. Lana barely noticed the city waking up around her, lost in thoughts of what-ifs and if-onlys. What if she had fought harder against her unfair dismissal? If only she had saved more when times were good. As the bus neared her stop, Lana shook off these unproductive thoughts. Today was a new day, and dwelling on the past wouldn't change her present situation. She straightened her shoulders, put on her best smile, and prepared to face whatever challenges the day might bring. Little did she know this ordinary Tuesday was about to become extraordinary, and her life would never be the same again. As Lana pushed open the doors of Crispy Crunch, the familiar smell of frying oil and artificial cheese assaulted her senses. She nodded a greeting to Sarah, her co-worker who was just finishing the night shift. "Rough night?" Lana asked, noticing the dark circles under Sarah's eyes. Sarah sighed, running a hand through her disheveled hair. "You have no idea. My little one was up all night with a fever. I couldn't find anyone to watch her, so I had to bring her in. She's sleeping in the break room now." Lana's heart went out to her colleague. Sarah was a single mother struggling to make ends meet on a fast food worker's salary. "Go home and get some rest. I'll cover for you if the manager asks." "Thanks, Lana. You're a lifesaver," Sarah said, gratitude evident in her tired eyes. As Sarah left, Lana began her pre-opening routine. She checked the fryers, restocked the condiments, and made sure everything was in order. Just as she finished, the door to the manager's office swung open, revealing Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith was a man in his late 40s with a permanent scowl etched on his face. He surveyed the restaurant with a critical eye, his gaze finally landing on Lana. "Where's Sarah?" he barked. Lana hesitated for a moment before answering. "She wasn't feeling well, sir. I told her to go home and rest, and I can handle the morning rush." Mr. Smith's scowl deepened. "That's the third time this month. One more absence and she's out. We can't afford to coddle lazy workers." Lana bit her tongue, resisting the urge to defend Sarah. She knew Mr. Smith's temper all too well. As the morning progressed, the restaurant filled with the usual crowd of commuters grabbing breakfast on their way to work. Lana moved efficiently, taking orders, preparing food, and maintaining a cheerful demeanor despite the mounting pressure. Around mid-morning, a well-dressed man in his 30s walked in, his eyes glued to his phone. Lana recognized him as a regular customer who always seemed too busy to even look up from his device. "Welcome to Crispy Crunch. May I take your order?" Lana asked, her tone friendly, despite knowing she'd likely be ignored. To her surprise, the man glanced up. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Lana saw a flicker of recognition in his gaze. But as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, replaced by a look of distraction. "The usual," he muttered, already back to typing furiously on his phone. Lana nodded, punching in his regular order of a black coffee and a breakfast sandwich. As she prepared his food, she couldn't help but wonder about the man. There was something familiar about him, but she couldn't quite place it. The morning rush was in full swing when Mr. Smith emerged from his office again, so he watched the employees like a hawk, barking orders and criticisms at every opportunity. "Move faster, we're not running a charity here," he shouted at a new employee who was struggling to keep up with the pace. Lana noticed the young worker's hands shaking as he tried to fill drink orders. She stepped in, gently guiding him through the process. "Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it," she reassured him. "Just take a deep breath and focus on one task at a time." Mr. Smith's voice cut through their interaction. "Lana, stop babying the new guy and get back to work. And if he can't handle the job, he shouldn't be here." Lana felt a spark of anger ignite in her chest. She was tired of Mr. Smith's constant belittling and lack of empathy. Taking a deep breath, she turned to face her manager. "Mr. Smith, with all due respect, everyone needs time to learn. Yelling at him won't make him work faster, it'll only make him more nervous and prone to mistakes." The restaurant fell silent, all eyes on Lana and Mr. Smith. The manager's face turned an alarming shade of red. "What are you questioning my management style?" he hissed, stepping closer to Lana. Lana stood her ground. "I'm suggesting that a little patience and kindness could go a long way in improving morale and efficiency." Mr. Smith's eyes narrowed dangerously. "One more word out of you, and you'll be joining Sarah on the unemployment line. Got it?" Lana nodded stiffly, swallowing her retort. She couldn't afford to lose this job, no matter how much he despised the way Mr. Smith treated his employees. As the day wore on, Lana found herself increasingly frustrated with the working conditions at Crispy Crunch. She watched as Mr. Smith berated a teenage cashier for a minor mistake, reducing the poor girl to tears. She saw the fear in her co-worker's eyes every time the manager approached, and she felt the weight of her own powerlessness in the face of such blatant mistreatment. During a brief lunch break, Lana sat in the dingy break room, picking at a salad she had brought from home. She thought about her former life as a software engineer, the respect she had earned, the challenges she had overcome. How had she ended up here, in a place where basic human dignity seemed like a luxury? Hot's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of quiet sobbing. She looked up to see Sarah's daughter, still curled up on the worn-out sofa in the corner of the room. The little girl was awake now, her face flushed with fever. Lana's heart ached at the sight. She abandoned her lunch and moved to sit beside the child. "Hey there, sweetheart," she said softly. "Are you not feeling well?" The girl nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "I want my mommy," she whimpered. Lana stroked the child's hair gently. "I know, honey. Your mommy had to go home to rest, but she'll be back soon. Is there anything I can do to help you feel better?" The girl looked up at Lana with wide, tearful eyes. Can I have some chicken nuggets? Mommy says they always make me feel better when I'm sick." Lana hesitated. Employees weren't supposed to take food without paying for it, and she knew Mr. Smith would be furious if he found out. But looking at the miserable child in front of her, she couldn't bring herself to say no. "Of course, sweetie. I'll get you some nuggets right away." As Lana snuck into the kitchen to prepare a small meal for Sarah's daughter, she felt a mixture of emotions. Guilt at breaking the rules warred with the satisfaction of helping someone in need. She thought about her mother's words, "Do good and good will come back to you." Surely this small act of kindness couldn't be wrong, could it? Little did Lana know that this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge her beliefs, test her resolve, and ultimately change the course of her life forever. As she returned to the break room with a warm plate of chicken nuggets, she had no idea that her simple act of compassion was about to collide head-on with the harsh realities of corporate greed and societal prejudice. The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only shake the foundations of Crispy Crunch, but would also ripple out to touch the lives of people Lana had yet to meet. And at the center of it all would be a lost little girl, a desperate father, and a simple meal that would prove that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can have the most profound consequences. Across town, in a luxurious penthouse apartment, Edward Hunt paced back and forth, his phone pressed tightly against his ear. The CEO of Blue Wings Corporation, Bukes, one of the city's most prestigious tech companies, was usually the picture of calm and confidence. Today, his perfectly tailored suit was rumpled, his tie loosened, and his usually well-groomed hair a disheveled mess. "What do you mean you can't find her?" he barked into the phone. "She's an 8-year-old girl, for God's sake. How hard can it be?" On the other end of the line, his head of security tried to explain the difficulties of searching for a single child in a city of millions. But Edward wasn't listening. His mind was racing, replaying the events of the previous night over and over again. It had started as a typical evening. Edward had come home late from work as usual to find his daughter Emma waiting for him. Her nanny had already left for the day, leaving a note about Emma's refusal to eat dinner or do her homework. "Daddy, you promised we'd go to the park today," Emma had said, her voice small and hurt. Edward had sighed, loosening his tie. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Work ran late again. We'll go this weekend, okay?" But Emma wasn't satisfied. "You always say that and we never go. You never have time for me." The argument had escalated quickly. Emma, usually quiet and withdrawn, had suddenly exploded with a fury that took Edward by surprise. She screamed about broken promises, about missing her mother, about feeling alone and unloved. And Edward, exhausted from a long day of meetings and unprepared for this emotional onslaught, had snapped back. "That's enough, Emma. Go to your room right now." The look of betrayal in his daughter's eyes haunted him now. She had run to her room, slamming the door behind her. Edward had retreated to his home office, burying himself in work to escape the guilt gnawing at his conscience. It wasn't until morning that he discovered Emma was gone. Her bed was empty, her backpack missing, along with some clothes and her favorite stuffed animal. A hastily scribbled note on her desk read, "I'm going to find someone who actually wants me." Now, as the sun rose higher in the sky, Edward felt a desperation he had never known before. He ended the call with security and slumped onto his leather sofa, head in his hands. How had it come to this? When had he become the kind of father his daughter felt she needed to run away from? Edward's mind drifted back to happier times. He remembered the day Emma was born, how tiny and perfect she had seemed in his arms. He remembered his late wife, Sarah, and the joy that had filled their home in those early years. But then Sarah had gotten sick. The cancer had come swiftly and mercilessly, taking her away in less than a year. Edward, devastated and suddenly a single father, had thrown himself into his work. Book had been his lifeline, the one place where he felt in control, where he could make sense of the world. And Emma had retreated into herself. The bubbly, talkative child she had once been was replaced by a quiet, introspective girl who struggled to connect with others. The doctors had mentioned mild autism, but Edward had been too preoccupied with work to fully engage with the diagnosis or its implications. A wave of shame washed over Edward as he realized how badly he had failed his daughter. He had provided her with every material comfort, the best schools, the most expensive toys, a small army of nannies and tutors. But he had failed to give her the one thing she needed most, his time and attention. The sound of his phone ringing jolted Edward out of his self-recrimination. It was his assistant, reminding him of an important board meeting scheduled for that morning. "Cancel it," Edward said abruptly. "Cancel everything. Finding my daughter is the only thing that matters right now." His assistant's shocked silence spoke volumes about how out of character this behavior was for Edward Hunt, the man known for putting Book above all else. As he ended the call, Edward caught sight of a family photo on his desk. It was from their last vacation together before Sarah got sick. They were at the beach, all three of them laughing as they built a sandcastle. Emma's smile was radiant, her eyes sparkling with joy. Edward picked up the photo, his fingers tracing his daughter's face. "I'm so sorry, Emma," he whispered. "I promise I'll make this right. I'll be the father you deserve." With renewed determination, Edward stood up and grabbed his car keys. He wouldn't wait for security to find Emma. He would search every street, every park, every corner of the city himself if he had to. As he rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Edward's mind raced with possibilities. Where would Emma go? She was smart for her age, but she was still just a child. The thought of her alone on the streets filled him with terror. Edward's driver was waiting for him, but he waved the man away. "I'll drive myself today," he said, sliding into his sleek sports car. As he pulled out onto the busy morning streets, Edward felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Fear for Emma's safety, but hope that this crisis might be the wake-up call he needed to rediscover what truly mattered in life. Little did he know that at that very moment, his daughter was walking into a fast food restaurant where a simple act of kindness was about to set in motion a chain of events that would change not just Emma's step but Edward's as well. The city bustled around him as Edward began his search, his expensive car looking out of place in the neighborhoods he found himself driving through. He stopped at parks, showed Emma's picture to strangers, and even checked the shelters he usually only saw from the windows of his chauffeured car. Hours passed, and desperation began to set in. Edward's perfectly pressed suit was now wrinkled and stained with sweat. His polished shoes were scuffed from walking through areas of the city he'd never set foot in before. As the day wore on, Edward found himself in a part of town he barely recognized. The gleaming skyscrapers of the financial district gave way to more modest buildings, small businesses, and fast food chains. It was a world away from the corporate boardrooms and five-star restaurants he was used to. Exhausted and hungry, Edward pulled into the parking lot of a Crispy Crunch. He hadn't eaten all day, too worried about Emma to even think about food. But now, as he stepped out of his car, he realized he needed to keep up his strength if he was going to continue searching. As he approached the entrance, Edward had no idea that he was about to walk into a situation that would challenge everything he thought he knew about business, ethics, and what it truly means to be successful. But behind those doors, a convergence of lives was about to take place, one that would have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved. The afternoon sun beat down on the Crispy Crunch parking lot as a small figure approached the restaurant. Emma Hunt, her backpack clutched tightly to her chest, looked up at the garish orange and yellow sign with a mixture of hunger and trepidation. She had been wandering the unfamiliar streets for hours, the excitement of her impulsive escape long since faded into fear and regret. As she pushed open the heavy glass door, the smell of fried food and the buzz of conversation washed over her. Emma's stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since yesterday. She fumbled in her pocket, pulling out a crumpled $5 bill, all the money she had managed to grab before leaving home. Behind the counter, Lana was in the middle of her shift, her earlier confrontation with Mr. Smith's still weighing heavily on her mind. As she handed a bag of food to a customer, she caught sight of Emma entering the restaurant. Something about the girl's demeanor, the way she hugged her backpack, her nervous glances around the room, set off alarm bells in Lana's mind. "Welcome to Crispy Crunch," Lana called out with a gentle smile. "Can I help you?" Emma approached the counter, her eyes barely reaching over the top. What can I get for $5? She asked in a small voice. Lana's heart clenched. The girl was clearly alone and looked like she hadn't had a proper meal in a while. "Well, let's see," Lana said, pretending to study the menu. "How about a kid's meal? It comes with chicken nuggets, fries, and a drink. That should fill you up nicely." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? That's not too expensive." "Not at all," Lana assured her, even though she knew the meal cost more than $5. She'd cover the difference herself. As Lana prepared the food, she kept a watchful eye on Emma. The girl's clothes were expensive but rumpled, as if she'd been wearing them for days. Her hair was tangled, and there were smudges of dirt on her face. Everything about her screamed run away. "Here you go, sweetheart," Lana said, handing over the tray of food. "Why don't you take a seat over there where I can see you? If you need anything else, just let me know." Emma nodded gratefully and made her way to a booth near the counter. As she ate, Lana noticed how the girl's movements seemed slightly awkward, her gaze rarely meeting anyone else's. It reminded Lana of the articles she'd read about autism spectrum disorders during her software engineering days. Between serving other customers, Lana kept checking on Emma. The girl ate slowly, savoring every bite as if it might be her last meal for a while. When she finished, she didn't leave immediately, instead huddling in the booth with her backpack. Lana's shift was nearly over, but she couldn't bear the thought of the child leaving alone. Making a decision, she approached Emma's table. "Hey there," she said softly, sliding into the seat opposite Emma. "I'm Lana. What's your name?" Anna hesitated, her mother's warnings about stranger danger flashing through her mind. But there was something kind in Lana's eyes that made her feel safe. "Emma," she replied quietly. "Nice to meet you, Emma. Are you here all by yourself?" Emma nodded, her lower lip trembling slightly. Lana took a deep breath. She had to tread carefully. "That must be scary. Is there someone I can call for you? Your parents, maybe?" At the mention of parents, Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I ran away," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dad doesn't want me anymore. He's always too busy." Lana's heart broke for the child. She recognized the pain of feeling unwanted, remembering her own difficult childhood. "Oh, sweetie," she said gently, "I'm sure that's not true. Your dad must be very worried about you." As Emma sniffled, trying to hold back tears, Lana made a decision that would change both their lives. "Listen, Emma, it's not safe for you to be out here alone. Why don't you stay here for a bit longer? I get off work soon, and we can figure out what to do together. Okay?" Emma nodded, relief washing over her face. Lana gave her a reassuring smile and stood up, her mind racing. She knew she should call the police, but something held her back. She remembered how the system had failed her and her mother when they were homeless. Maybe, just maybe, she could help Emma in a more personal way. As Lana returned to the counter, she didn't notice Mr. Smith watching from his office. His eyes narrowed suspiciously. The manager had seen Lana talking to Emma and was now keeping a close eye on both of them. The rest of Lana's shift passed in a blur. She kept Emma supplied with refills and extra fries, all while trying to figure out what to do next. As closing time approached, Lana was just about to hang up her apron when the restaurant door swung open. A man in a disheveled suit burst in, his eyes wild with panic. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice hoarse. "I'm looking for my daughter. Has anyone seen a little girl about 8 years old, brown hair, wearing a blue backpack?" Lana froze, her gaze darting between the man and Emma, who had shrunk down in her booth, trying to make herself invisible. The resemblance between them was unmistakable. This had to be Emma's father. For a moment, Lana hesitated. Should she reveal Emma's presence? The girl clearly didn't want to be found. But as she looked at the anguish on the man's face, she knew she couldn't keep them apart. "Sir," Lana said, stepping forward, "I think your daughter is here." So the man's head snapped towards Lana, hope blazing in his eyes. Where is she?" And Lana gestured towards Emma's booth. "She's right over there. She's safe, sir. She's been here for a few hours." The man, Edward, though Lana didn't know his name yet, rushed towards the booth. Emma, "Oh, thank God." And Emma looked up, a mix of emotions playing across her face, relief, fear, and a lingering hurt. "Daddy?" she whispered. Edward fell to his knees beside the booth, gathering Emma into his arms. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." "I'm so sorry. I've been looking everywhere for you. I was so worried." As father and daughter clung to each other, Lana felt a lump form in her throat. The scene was touching, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. Suddenly, Mr. Smith's voice cut through the emotional moment. "What's going on here?" he demanded, striding out of his office. "Lana, explain yourself. Why is this child still here after hours?" Lana opened her mouth to respond, but Edward beat her to it. He stood up, Emma still in his arms, and faced Mr. Smith. "This woman," he said, gesturing to Lana, "has been taking care of my daughter. She's the reason I found her safe and sound." Mr. Smith's demeanor changed instantly as he recognized Edward. "Mr. Hunt, I had no idea, of course. We're always happy to help our valued customers." Lana's eyes widened as she realized who Emma's father was. Edward Hunt, CEO of Blue Wings Corporation, one of the largest tech companies in the city. She had applied for a job there once, before everything fell apart. As Mr. Smith fawned over Edward, Lana saw Emma whisper something in her father's ear. Edward's expression softened, and he turned to Lana. "My daughter tells me you've been very kind to her," he said. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you for what you've done." Before Lana could respond, Mr. Smith interjected. "Oh, think nothing of it, Mr. Hunt. Here at Crispy Crunch, customer satisfaction is our top priority. In fact, why don't you have a meal on the house? I'm sure you and your daughter must be hungry after such an ordeal." Edward frowned slightly at the interruption but nodded. "Thank you, that would be appreciated. But I was speaking to," he trailed off, realizing he didn't know Lana's name. "Lana," she supplied. "And really, sir, I'm just glad Emma is me omgis." As Mr. Smith rushed to prepare a special meal for Edward and Emma, Lana couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief that Emma was reunited with her father, pride in having helped, but also a gnawing worry about what would happen next. She had broken company rules by giving Emma free food and letting her stay past closing time. But Mr. Smith overlooked that now that he knew who Emma's was, or would Lana face consequences for her actions? Little did she know, this encounter was about to set in motion a series of events that would challenge not only her future but also the very foundations of corporate culture in their city. As Edward settled into a booth with Emma, his eyes kept drifting back to Lana, curiosity and gratitude evident in his gaze. The stage was set for a confrontation between compassion and corporate greed, with Lana caught in the middle. The following days were a whirlwind of change for everyone involved in that fateful night at Crispy Crunch. Edward Hunt, true to his word, had not let the matter drop. The CEO of Blue Wings Corporation found himself on an unexpected crusade, one that would challenge not only his own perceptions, but the very foundations of corporate culture in the city. Early Monday morning, Edward strode into the Book headquarters, a man on a mission. His usual crisp suit was in place, but there was a new fire in his eyes that made his employees take notice. He bypassed his office and headed straight for the boardroom, where he had called an emergency meeting of the executive team. "Ladies and gentlemen," Edward began, his voice firm and determined, "we need to talk about our company's impact on the community and our responsibility to our employees, not just those in this building, but those in every business we affect." The board members exchanged puzzled glances. This was not the Edward Hunt they were used to, the man who prioritized profit margins and market share above all else. Edward recounted the events at Crispy Crunch, not sparing any details about his own failings as a father and as a corporate leader. He spoke of Lana's kindness, of Sarah's struggle as a working mother, and of Mr. Smith's callous management style. "We've been operating under the assumption that our only responsibility is to our shareholders," Edward continued. "But I've seen firsthand the human cost of that mindset. It's time for a change." Some board members nodded in agreement, while others looked skeptical. One of them, a gruff older man named Johnson, spoke up. "With all due respect, Edward, what happens in a fast food joint is hardly our concern. We're a tech company, not a social welfare organization." Edward's eyes narrowed. "That fast food joint, as you call it, Johnston, is part of a chain owned by one of our major investors. The working conditions there are a direct result of the pressure we put on them for higher returns. We can't wash our hands of that responsibility." He laid out his plan, a comprehensive review of BWC's impact on its entire supply chain, new supply chain support working new policy outreach program to help small businesses improve their management practices. And to spearhead this initiative, Edward announced, "I've offered a position to someone who embodies the values we should aspire to. Lana will be joining us as our new Director of Corporate Social Responsibility." The boardroom erupted into a mix of surprised murmurs and outright objections. "You can't be serious," Johnson sputtered. some fast food worker with no corporate experience. Edward held up a hand to quiet the room. Lana has a degree in software engineering and a wealth of real-world experience that we desperately need. Her perspective will be invaluable as we move forward. As the meeting continued, with heated debates and careful planning, Edward couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in just a few days. He thought of Emma, who was now in therapy to help with her autism and the trauma of her mother's loss. He had taken a step back from work, delegating more responsibilities to focus on rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. Meanwhile, across town, Lana stood outside the imposing glass and steel structure of Blue Wings Corporation. She smoothed down her new blazer, a far cry from her crispy crunch uniform, and took a deep breath. The events of the past few days still felt surreal. After that night at the restaurant, Edward had made good on his job offer. Lana had been hesitant at first, worried about leaving Sarah and her others behind. But Edward had assured her that part of her new role would involve improving conditions for workers like her former colleagues. Lana thought about her mother, who had cried tears of joy when Lana told her about the new job. For the first time in years, they didn't have to worry about making rent or affording medication. It was a weight lifted off both their shoulders. As Lana walked into the book lobby, she was greeted by Edward himself. "Ready to change the world?" he asked with a smile. Lana nodded, her determination evident. "One step at a time," she replied. Edward led her to her new office, explaining her role and the challenges they faced. "It won't be easy," he warned. "There's a lot of resistance to change, especially when it affects the bottom line." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Lana assured him, "and I have a feeling the long-term benefits will outweigh any short-term costs." As they discussed strategies and ideas, Lana couldn't help but think of Sarah and her daughter. She made a mental note to start with policies supporting working parents. Maybe on-site childcare facilities or flexible working hours could make a real difference for employees struggling to balance work and family. Across the city at Crispy Crunch, changes were already underway. Mr. Smith had been temporarily suspended pending a full review of his management practices. Sarah had been promoted to assistant manager, her experience and dedication finally recognized. The restaurant itself was undergoing a transformation. New equipment was being installed to improve working conditions, and a small play area was being constructed for employees' children. The staff noticed a marked difference in the atmosphere. There was a sense of hope and dignity that had been missing before. As the weeks passed, the ripple effects of that one night began to spread further. Other companies in the city, noticing the positive press Book was receiving for its initiatives, started to re-evaluate their own practices. Small business owners reached out to Lana for advice on improving their workplace cultures. But the changes weren't without challenges. Some investors grumbled about the increased expenditures on employee welfare. Competitors accused Book's publicity stunts, and within the company itself, there were those who resisted the new direction, clinging to old ways of doing business. Lana found herself at the center of many of these conflicts. There were days when she questioned whether she was really making a difference, whether the corporate world could truly change. But then she would remember the look on Sarah's face when she received her promotion, or the gratitude in a young intern's eyes when they were able to take paid leave to care for a sick parent. Edward, too, faced his share of challenges. Balancing his new commitment to social responsibility with the demands of running a major corporation was no easy task. There were late nights and tough decisions, moments of doubt and frustration. But every evening when he returned home to Emma, he was reminded of why it was all worth it. Slowly but surely, he was rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. They had regular daddy-daughter dates where work calls were strictly forbidden. Emma was opening up more, her therapist noting significant progress in her social skills and emotional regulation. And one Friday afternoon, about 3 months after the night that had changed everything, Edward called Lana into his office. She entered to find him looking out the window, a thoughtful expression on his face. Do you ever wonder, he asked without turning around, if we're really making a difference? If all this effort is worth it? Lana joined him at the window, looking out at the city sprawled below them. Every day, she admitted. But then I think about Sarah, about your daughter, about all the people whose lives are a little bit better because of what we're doing. And I know it's worth it. Edward nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. You know, when I offered you this job, I thought I was doing you a favor. But the truth is, you've done more for this company and for me than I could have ever imagined. Lana felt a warmth in her chest at his words. We're just getting started, she said confidently. There's still so much more we can do. As they stood there, looking out at the city, they were slowly but surely changing. Neither of them could have predicted the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead, but they both knew with unshakable certainty that they were on the right path. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. It was a fitting backdrop for the story unfolding within the walls of Blue Wings Corporation and beyond. A story of redemption, of second chances, and of the profound impact that small acts of kindness can have on the world. As we leave Lana and Edward contemplating their journey and the road ahead, we're reminded that change, real lasting change, often begins with a single moment of compassion. Their story is far from over, and who knows what further transformations await them and the city they're reshaping. If you've been moved by this tale of corporate responsibility and human kindness, why not stay tuned for more inspiring stories? Every like, share, and subscribe helps us bring more of these uplifting narratives to light. After all, in a world that often seems dark, stories like these remind us of the power we all have to make a difference. So why not join our community of storytellers and change makers? Your next dose of inspiration is just a click away. As the months passed, the changes initiated by Edward and Lana at Blue Wings Corporation began to take root, but not without significant challenges. The company's new direction, focusing on corporate social responsibility and employee welfare, was met with mixed reactions from various stakeholders. One crisp autumn morning, Edward found himself standing before a packed auditorium. The annual shareholders' meeting had always been a routine affair, but this year was different. The tension in the room was palpable as Edward took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. I know many of you have questions about the recent changes at Boo. Today, I'm here to address those concerns and share our vision for the future. As Edward spoke about the company's new initiatives, from improved working conditions in their supply chain to community outreach programs, he could see the mixed reactions in the audience. Some nodded approvingly, while others frowned and whispered to their neighbors. When he opened the floor for questions, the first hand that shot up belonged to none other than Johnson, the board member who had been most vocal in his opposition to the new policies. Mr. Hunt, Johnson said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, while these feel-good initiatives are all very nice, can you explain to us how they're affecting our bottom line? Our stock price has taken a hit, and some of us are wondering if you've lost sight of what really matters in business. Edward took a deep breath before responding. He had anticipated this question and was prepared for it. What really matters in business, Mr. Johnson, is sustainability. Yes, our stock price has dipped in the short term, but I'm here to show you how these initiatives are setting us up for long-term growth and stability. He proceeded to present data showing increased employee productivity, reduced turnover rates, and growing customer loyalty. By investing in our people and our communities, Edward explained, we're building a stronger, more resilient company that's better equipped to face future challenges. As the meeting continued, more shareholders voiced their concerns and questions. Edward addressed each one patiently, his conviction unwavering. By the end of the session, while not everyone was fully convinced, there was a sense that Book was charting a new and potentially transformative path in the business world. Meanwhile, Lana was facing her own set of challenges. Her office had become a hub of activity, with a constant stream of employees coming to her with ideas, concerns, and sometimes complaints about the changes. One afternoon, As Lana was reviewing proposals for a new employee wellness program, there was a knock on her door. She looked up to see Sarah, her former co-worker from Crispy Crunch, now part of BWC's community outreach team. "Got a minute?" Sarah asked, her expression troubled. Lana nodded, gesturing for her to take a seat. "What's on your mind?" Sarah sighed heavily. "It's about the small business initiative. We're getting pushback from some of the local shop owners. They're saying our programs are too disruptive, that we're trying to change too much too fast." Lana leaned back in her chair, considering the problem. The small business initiative had been one of her pet projects, aimed at helping local businesses improve their practices and working conditions. She had been so focused on the potential benefits that she hadn't fully considered the resistance they might face. "I see," Lana said slowly. "Maybe we need to change our approach. Instead of coming in with ready-made solutions, we should be listening more to what these business owners actually need." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "That's what I was thinking. What if we organized a series of town hall meetings? Give them a chance to voice their concerns and contribute their own ideas." As they brainstormed ways to improve the initiative, Lana couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come. Just a few months ago, she and Sarah had been struggling to make ends meet at a fast food joint. Now they were working together to shape corporate policies that could impact thousands of lives. Across town, at a newly renovated Crispy Crunch, Mr. Smith was having a moment of reckoning. After his suspension and a thorough review of his management practices, he had been given a choice: change his ways or lose his job. To everyone's surprise, including his own, he had chosen to change. Now, as he watched his employees work in a more relaxed and productive atmosphere, Mr. Smith felt a mix of emotions. There was regret for his past behavior, but also a growing sense of pride in the positive changes he was helping to implement. As the dinner rush began, he noticed a young employee struggling with a complicated order. Instead of barking orders or criticizing, Mr. Smith approached calmly. "You need a hand there, Jake?" he asked, his tone supportive rather than accusatory. The young man looked up, surprise evident on his face. Yes, sir. This order is a bit tricky." Mr. Smith nodded understandingly. "Let's work through it together. Remember, it's okay to take your time to get it right." As they worked side by side, Mr. Smith felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. Was this what it felt like to be a mentor rather than a tyrant? Back at Books, Edward was wrapping up a long day of meetings when his phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Dad, don't forget, it's pizza and movie night." Edward smiled, quickly packing up his things. These regular father-daughter nights became sacred to him, a reminder of what truly mattered in life. As he drove home, Edward reflected on the journey of the past few months. The challenges had been numerous and often daunting. There were days when he questioned whether he was doing the right thing, whether the cost of these changes was too high. But then he would remember the spark in Emma's eyes when she talked about her day, the newfound confidence in Lana's voice as she presented her latest initiative, the stories of employees whose lives had been positively impacted by the new policies. And he knew, deep in his heart, that they were on the right path. Arriving home, Edward was greeted by the sight of Emma setting up their living room for movie night. She looked up as he entered, her face breaking into a wide smile. "Dad, you're just in time. I've got the pizza and the movie all ready." As they settled in for their evening together, Edward felt a profound sense of gratitude. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but moments like these made every struggle worthwhile. Meanwhile, in a small apartment across the city, Lana sat with her mother sharing a simple dinner. The worry lines that had been a constant on Mrs. Huang's face for so many years had begun to soften. "I'm so proud of you, Kongay," Mrs. Huang said, reaching out to squeeze Lana's hand. "You've always had a kind heart. Now you're using it to change the world." Lana felt tears prick her eyes. "I learned it from Yumi," she said softly. "You always taught me to do good, no matter how hard things got." As they sat there, mother and daughter, Lana thought about the ripple effects of kindness. From a simple act at a fast food restaurant to a corporate revolution, from a father reconnecting with his daughter to a manager learning the value of compassion, each small action had led to something greater. The challenges were far from over. There would be more resistance, more setbacks, more moments of doubt. But there would also be triumphs, breakthroughs, and lives changed for the better. As the sun set on another day of change and growth, the city seemed to hum with possibility. In boardrooms and fast food joints, in homes and community centers, a new way of thinking was taking hold. It was a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, compassion and determination could spark a revolution. And so, dear readers, as we leave our characters to face the challenges and triumphs that await them, we're left with a powerful reminder: every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the potential to change the world. Will you be the one to start the next ripple of positive change? If this story has touched your heart or inspired you to think differently about the power of compassion in the corporate world, why not share it with others? Remember, by subscribing to our channel, you're not just staying updated on more inspiring tales, you're becoming part of a community dedicated to spreading kindness and making a difference. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Who knows? The next story you hear might be the one that changes your life. As the seasons changed and a year passed since that fateful night at Crispy Crunch, the impact of Lana and Edward's initiatives had begun to ripple out far beyond the walls of Blue Wings Corporation. The city was abuzz with talk of a new way of doing business, one that prioritized people alongside profits. On a crisp spring morning, Lana stood before a crowd gathered in the city's Central Park. The occasion was the launch of the Community First Initiative, a joint project between Books and local businesses to create a more inclusive and supportive urban environment. A year ago, Lana began, her voice clear and confident. I was working in a fast food restaurant, struggling to make ends meet. Today I stand before you not just as a corporate executive, but as someone who has seen firsthand the power of compassion in business. As she spoke, Lana caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd. There was Sarah, now a respected manager at Crispy Crunch, standing proudly with her daughter. Mr. Smith was there too, a changed man who had become an advocate for ethical management practices. And in the front row, Edward sat with Emma, the bond between father and daughter stronger than ever. This initiative, Lana continued, is not just about corporate responsibility. It's about reimagining the very fabric of our community. It's about creating a city where every worker is treated with dignity, where every child has opportunities to thrive, and where businesses large and small work together for the common good. The applause that followed was thunderous. As Lana stepped down from the podium, she was immediately surrounded by well-wishers and reporters eager to learn more about the initiative. Meanwhile, Edward made his way through the crowd, Emma's hand clasped firmly in his. He couldn't help but marvel at the transformation he'd witnessed over the past year, not just in the city and his company, but in himself. "Dad," Emma tugged at his sleeve, her eyes shining with excitement. "Can we go congratulate Lana? Her speech was amazing." Edward smiled, noting the confidence in his daughter's voice. The shy, withdrawn child of a year ago had blossomed into an engaged and empathetic young girl. Her therapy had been successful, and while she still faced challenges related to her autism, she had made remarkable progress. As they approached Lana, Edward reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this point. The late nights, the tough negotiations, the moments of doubt, all had been worth it to see the positive changes taking root around them. "Lana," he called out, "fantastic speech. You've really captured the essence of what we're trying to achieve." Lana turned, her face lighting up at the sight of Edward and Emma. "Thank you," she said warmly. "But I couldn't have done any of this without your support and vision." As the three of them chatted, a commotion near the edge of the crowd caught their attention. A group of protesters had gathered, holding signs criticizing Book and the Community First Initiative. "Corporate propaganda." One sign read, "What about the jobs lost to your progress?" demanded another. Edward tensed, ready to intervene, but Lana placed a calming hand on his arm. "Let me handle this," she said softly. With Emma and Edward watching, Lana approached the protesters. Instead of becoming defensive or dismissive, she engaged them in conversation, listening to their concerns with genuine interest. "I understand your fears," she said to the group. "Change can be scary, especially when it affects our livelihoods. So I'd like to invite you to be part of this change. Tell me, what specific concerns do you have? How can we address them together?" The protesters, caught off guard by Lana's openness, began to voice their worries. Some spoke of family businesses struggling to adapt to new regulations. Others expressed fears about automation and job loss. As Lana listened and responded, the tension in the air began to dissipate. She didn't make grand promises or dismiss their concerns. Instead, she invited them to join upcoming community meetings where these issues could be discussed and addressed. Edward watched in awe as Lana transformed a potential public relations disaster into an opportunity for dialogue and inclusion. He was reminded once again why he had chosen her to lead this initiative. As the event wound down, Edward, Emma, and Lana found themselves sitting on a park bench, reflecting on the day's events. "You know," Edward mused, "a year ago I would have seen those protesters as a threat to be neutralized. But you've shown me a different way, Lana, a way of leading with empathy and inclusivity." Lana smiled, a hint of her old shyness returning. "I just tried to treat them the way I wished I'd been treated when I was struggling. Everyone deserves to be heard." Emma, who had been listening intently, piped up. "Dad, Lana, I have an idea." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "What if we started a program at my school to teach kids about business ethics and community responsibility?" Ed and Lana exchanged surprised looks. "That's actually a brilliant idea, Emma," Edward said, a surge of pride welling up in his chest. "It could be part of our long-term strategy," Lana added thoughtfully, "nurturing the next generation of ethical business leaders." As they discussed Emma's idea, fleshing out the possibilities, a sense of hope and excitement filled the air. They were no longer just changing a company, or even a city. They were planting seeds for a whole new way of thinking about business and community. The sun began to set over the park, casting a warm glow over the dispersing crowd. As families packed up picnic blankets and children chased each other across the grass, there was a palpable sense of change in the air. In the days and weeks that followed, the impact of the Community First initiative began to take hold. Local businesses reported increased customer loyalty as people rallied behind companies that prioritize ethical practices. The city saw a decrease in unemployment as new opportunities opened up in community development and sustainable industries. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still skeptics, still challenges to overcome. Some old school business leaders resisted the changes, arguing that they were unsustainable in the long run. There were setbacks and moments of doubt. Yet, with each challenge, the movement seemed to grow stronger. People who had once felt powerless in the face of corporate giants now felt they had a voice. Communities that had been overlooked were now at the center of development discussions. One evening, as Lana worked late in her office, she received an unexpected visitor. It was Mr. Johnson, the board member who had been her staunchest opponent in the early days of the initiative. "Miss Lana," he said, an uncharacteristic hesitation in his voice, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you and about this whole initiative. I've seen the numbers, seen the change in our employees in our community. You've proven that doing good can also be good for business." Lana was momentarily speechless. Then, recovering her composure, she smiled and extended her hand. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Your support means a lot. Would you like to hear about our plans for the next phase?" As they sat down to discuss the future of Buchan, the Community First initiative, Lana felt a sense of coming full circle. From a struggling fast food worker to a corporate leader changing the face of business, it had been an incredible journey. Meanwhile, across town, Edward tucked Emma into bed. As he kissed her goodnight, she sleepily murmured, "Dad, I'm proud of you. You're making the world better." Edward felt a lump form in his throat. "No, sweetheart," he whispered. "We're making it better together." As he closed Emma's door and headed to his home office to review some community-first proposals, Edward reflected on the transformation of the past year. He had started this journey hoping to be a better father and a more responsible business leader. Now, what he hadn't expected was how much it would change him as a person. The city outside was quiet, but there was an energy in the air, an energy of change, of hope, of a community coming together to redefine what success really means. And so, dear readers, as we leave our characters to continue their journey of transformation and growth, we're reminded that true change often starts with a single act of kindness, a moment of empathy, a decision to do things differently. Lana, Edward, Emma, and all the others we've met along the way have shown us that it's possible to create a world where business and compassion go hand in hand. Their story isn't over. In many ways, it's just beginning. And perhaps, just perhaps, their journey might inspire you to start your own. After all, every great movement begins with a single step. And if you've been moved by this tale of corporate responsibility and human kindness, why not share it with others? By subscribing to our channel, you're not just staying updated on inspiring stories, you're becoming part of a community dedicated to making a difference. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Who knows? The next chapter in this ongoing story of change might be written by you. As the sun rose on a new day, casting its warm glow over the city, Lana stood at the window of her office at Blue Wings Corporation. The view before her was vastly different from the one she had known just a year and a half ago. Where once she had seen only towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, she now saw a community transformed. The Community First initiative had taken root and flourished beyond their wildest dreams. Green spaces dotted the urban landscape, community centers buzzed with activity, and there was a palpable sense of connection among the city's residents. A knock on the door interrupted her reverie. "Come in," Lana called, turning from the window. Edward entered, a broad smile on his face. "Good morning, Lana. Ready for the big day?" Today was the launch of their newest project, a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting families with autistic children. It was a cause close to both their hearts, inspired by Emma's journey and the challenges they had witnessed in the community. "As ready as I'll ever be," Lana replied, her excitement tinged with a hint of nervousness. As they made their way to the conference room, Lana couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. The halls of Book were filled with a diverse array of employees, many of whom had been given second chances or opportunities they never thought possible. The conference room was packed with familiar faces. Sarah was there, now a key member of the community outreach team. Mr. Smith, the once tyrannical manager of Crispy Crunch, sat nearby, eagerly discussing employee welfare programs with other business leaders. As Lana took her place at the podium, she saw Emma in the front row, giving her an encouraging thumbs up. The young girl had become an integral part of their initiatives, often providing insight that only a child could offer. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lana began, her voice strong and clear, "today marks another milestone in our journey towards a more inclusive and compassionate business world. The Spectrum Support Foundation is not just another charity. It's a testament to what we can achieve when we prioritize people over profits, when we see challenges and opportunities for growth." So Lana spoke, detailing the foundation's goals and programs. She could see the enthusiasm building in the room. This wasn't just corporate philanthropy, it was a movement, a reimagining of what business could be. And after the presentation, as people mingled and discussed the new initiative, Edward pulled Lana aside. "You know," he said, his voice low, "when I first offered you a job here, I thought I was doing you a favor. But the truth is, you've transformed this company, this city, and me." Lana felt a lump form in her throat. "We did it together," she replied, "all of us." As they chatted, they were approached by a young woman, her eyes bright with hope. "Excuse me," she said hesitantly. I heard about your new foundation. My son was recently diagnosed with autism, and I've been feeling so lost. Can you tell me more about how you might be able to help?" Lana and Edward exchanged a glance, then turned to the woman with warm smiles. "Of course," Lana said, guiding her to a quiet corner. "Let's talk." As they spoke with the young mother, more people gathered around, sharing their own stories and offering support. It was a microcosm of the change they had been working towards, a community coming together, supporting one another, breaking down the barriers that had once seemed insurmountable. Later that evening, as the excitement of the day began to wind down, Lana found herself back in her office. She was surprised to see her mother waiting for her, a proud smile on her face. "Me!" Lana exclaimed, rushing to embrace her. "I didn't know you were coming today." Mrs. Huong's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "How could I miss this, Kongay? Look at all you've accomplished." As they sat together, Lana updating her mother on the day's events, she was struck by how far they had come from their days of struggling to make ends meet. Her mother's health had improved significantly thanks to better healthcare access, another initiative spearheaded by Bo. "You know," Mrs. Huong said softly, "your father would be so proud of you. You've taken the lessons we taught you about kindness and compassion, and you've changed the world with them." Lana felt tears prick her eyes at the mention of her father. Though he had passed away years ago, his influence had shaped so much of who she had become. As mother and daughter sat in comfortable silence, there was a gentle knock at the door. It was Emma, peeking in shyly. "Lana, Dad wanted to know if you and your mom would like to join us for dinner. We're celebrating." So Lana looked at her mother, who nodded with a smile. "We'd love to, Emma. Thank you." As they made their way out of the office, Lana couldn't help but marvel at the family they had created, not just her and her mother, but Edward, Emma, and all the others who had become part of this journey. The restaurant they went to is a far cry from Crispy Crunch. It was a social enterprise started with seed funding from books that employed and trained at-risk youth. The food was excellent, but more importantly, the atmosphere was filled with hope and possibility. As they ate and chatted, sharing stories and laughter, Lana found herself overwhelmed with gratitude. She looked around the table at Edward, who had transformed from a distant corporate CEO to a compassionate leader and devoted father, at Emma, whose challenges had sparked a movement of inclusivity and understanding, at her mother, whose unwavering belief in doing good had set Lana on this path, and at the restaurant staff, each with their own story of second chances and new beginnings. It struck her then the true power of what they had accomplished. They hadn't just changed policies or started new initiatives. They had changed lives, created hope, and shown that a different way of doing business was possible. As the evening drew to a close, they stepped out into the cool night air. The city lights twinkled around them, but to Lana, they seemed to shine a little brighter now. Each light represented a life touched, a family supported, a community strengthened. Edward put his arm around Emma's shoulders, looking out at the city with pride. "You know," he said, "I used to think success was all about stock prices and market share. But this feeling right here, this is true success." Lana nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She thought about the young mother they had met earlier, about Sarah and her daughter, about Mr. Smith and his journey of redemption. She thought about all the lives that had been changed, all the ripples that had spread from that one night at Crispy Crunch. As they said their good nights and parted ways, Lana knew that the work was far from over. There would be new challenges to face, new battles to fight. But she also knew that they had started something powerful, something that would continue to grow and spread. Walking home with her mother, Lana looked up at the stars twinkling above the city skyline. She remembered her mother's words from so long ago, "Do good and good will come back to you." How right she had been. And so, dear readers, as we leave Lana, Edward, Emma and all the others to continue their journey, we're reminded once again of the power of kindness, the importance of second chances, and the profound impact that one person can have when they choose to make a difference. Their story is a testament to the fact that change is possible, that businesses can be a force for good, and that compassion and success are not mutually exclusive. It's a story that continues to unfold, touching more lives with each passing day. As you reflect on this tale of transformation and hope, ask yourself, what change can you spark in your own community? What act of kindness can you perform today that might set off a chain reaction of positivity? Remember, every great movement starts with a single step. And who knows, your story might be the next one we share. So stay tuned, stay inspired, and most importantly, stay kind, because in the end, it's not just about changing a business or a city, it's about changing the world, one act of compassion at a time. As we reflect on this powerful journey of transformation, let us remember that within each of us lies the potential to change the world. This story isn't just about Lana, Edward, or Emma, it's about you and the untapped power you hold. Think back to those moments when you felt small, insignificant, or powerless. Remember the times when you thought your actions couldn't possibly make a difference. Now imagine if Lana had felt that way at Crispy Crunch. Imagine if she hadn't extended that small act of kindness to Emma. The ripples of that one action changed countless lives. You too have that power. Your kindness, your compassion, your willingness to stand up for what's right. These are not weaknesses. They are your greatest strengths. In a world that often prioritizes profit over people, your empathy is revolutionary. Think of the struggles you've faced, the hardships you've overcome. Those experiences haven't broken you, they've equipped you with unique insights and empathy that can drive real change. Your pain, your challenges, your setbacks, these are not the end of your story. They are the beginning of your impact. Every day you have the opportunity to be someone's Lana. You have the chance to be the person who sees beyond the surface, who offers kindness when it's least expected but most needed. Your actions, no matter how small they may seem, have the power to set in motion a chain of events that could transform lives, businesses, and entire communities. Remember, the most profound changes often start in the most unlikely places. A fast food restaurant became the catalyst for a city-wide revolution of compassion. Where will your revolution begin? So ask yourself, what's holding you back from being the change you wish to see? What fears are keeping you from extending that hand of kindness, from speaking up against injustice, from believing in your power to make a difference? Your voice matters, your actions count, your compassion can move mountains. In this very moment you stand at a crossroads. Will you choose to remain a spectator in your own life, or will you step forward and become the hero of your own story and potentially the hero in Srefal? The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present, to be brave, to be kind. It needs you to believe in the power of your own impact. So take that first step, extend that hand, speak that truth, offer that kindness. Be the Lana in your own story, because you never know, your small act of compassion today could be the beginning of a movement that changes the world tomorrow. Your story isn't over. In fact, the most important chapters are yet to be written. And they begin now with you, with this moment, with your decision to believe in the power of your own compassion. The world is waiting. What will your legacy be? We're truly grateful for your time and attention in listening to this story. Your support means the world to us and fuels our passion to create more inspiring tales that touch hearts and change lives. If this story resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Your feedback is not just appreciated, it's essential in shaping the content we create. It's the spark that ignites our creativity and drives us to deliver stories that matter. So, we invite you to be part of our storytelling journey. If you enjoyed this story and found it inspiring, why not leave a comment with the number 1? And it's a simple way to let us know that these kinds of narratives resonate with you. We're curious about what happens next, eager to see how Lana, Edward, and Emma's journey continues. If you're interested in a potential part 2 of this story, leave a comment with the number 2. How your enthusiasm could be the catalyst for the next chapter in this tale of transformation. And if there were parts of the story you didn't quite agree with, or aspects you think could be improved, we welcome your honest feedback. Your constructive criticism helps us grow and refine our storytelling craft. Lastly, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel. By hitting the subscribe button, you're not just supporting our team, you're joining a community of individuals who believe in the power of stories to inspire change and touch lives. Remember, every view, every comment, every subscription is a vote of confidence in what we do. It's what keeps us going, pushing boundaries, and striving to bring you content that not only entertains but also enlightens and empowers. Thank you for being part of our journey. We can't wait to see where this storytelling adventure takes us next with you right beside us.